employee satisfaction has reached a historic low.
It's easy to get operationally obsessed and lose focus of the mission. Organizations typically incorporate is a negative neutral environment. And so they significantly underperform in negative neutral environments.
The part of a leader is you've got to be consistent and persevere and keep doing this. And
for the first time ever, we have 5 generations working in the workplace.
We're giving you a formula to the solution.
You're listening to the Credit Union Leadership Podcast, a podcast that delivers value and offers up insight that'll help your credit union grow. ServiStar has been consulting with credit unions for over 20 years, growing them in the areas of cultural development, leadership development, and management training. To learn more about what ServiStar can do for you or your credit union, check them out at ServiStarConsulting.com.
Welcome to the Credit Union Leadership Podcast, where we inspire current leaders and aspiring leaders. It's Scott, and we've got
and we're going to set service standards with Scott and Scott. If you can find an extra S to fit into that, please set a comment and we'll put it into this episode title.
Wait, I already got you.
Setting service standards.
Setting super service standards with Scott and Scott show.
Yeah.
Man, that's a lot of, and I was trying to figure out how I can make the credit union start with an S.
The sizzling credit union, Scott and Scott, setting service standards show.
We just keep going. We keep going. So what we want to talk about today, what we want to discuss, what's a word that starts with S that means talking? What we want to shout about today.
Yeah, and showcase.
Yeah, and showcase. Showcase. There we go. What we want to showcase. We were, as a team, looking through some Gallup research. And I want to talk about this Gallup research with you, Albrecht, and have some conversations of where this problem is that Gallup has identified in the workplace and what we have found to be the solution in the credit union industry. And then after that, we wanted to discuss a very, very common question we get from current leaders. So if you're a current leader listening, stay tuned. This is going to be for you. If you're an aspiring leader, let's get you one step ahead of the game. So Albrecht, I'm going to pull this up. Let me talk about this. This article is called Top Workplace Challenges for 2025. And there's 3 specific stats surveys that they showed. And actually the specific research is 7 workplace challenges for 2025. The first one is employee satisfaction has reached a historic low. So when they're measuring 2 things, they're measuring how many of your employees are watching or actively seeking a new job versus how many employees are extremely satisfied with where they've worked. Well, 10 years ago, we were on a pretty steady stream where most employees, when it came to satisfaction, it was about 30%. The reports at the end of 2024, we're at 18% of our employees are extremely satisfied at work. Man, all right. What does that make you think? What have you seen that would validate this? Or maybe that's different in the credit union industry?
That's shocking. That just came out, I think, yesterday. I don't want to date the podcast, but that's up to date stats. 19% is it's not a lot.
18. It's even
18%.
lower.
Yeah. Okay, 18% is not a lot. We've been throwing that 30% stat out for years, and that was jaw-dropping, that only 30% of the workforce was extremely excited about being at work. And so 19%, I mean, it is...
Oh, you're right. We do use that stat in employee motivation and in coaching. Man.
18% that's a significant drop-off. And so what's happened over the past year that might have influenced that? I've seen the need for things to get more complex quicker, and the pace of change get escalated in the last year. And I've seen that as an ongoing trend in credit unions, whereas it's not just one thing, it's 5 things that we're trying to get converted. And so as we go to change things, it's easy to get operationally obsessed and lose focus of the mission. And this topic's timely because I think if we dig into that Gallup research, you might find something about expectation setting.
Yeah.
And that's historically what has led to such disengagement in the workplace. So yeah, keep reading. Let's see what else we find in this Gallup research.
Yeah, and what you just said actually reminds me of a challenge that we see a lot of credit unions face in middle management. Remind me about that later after we talk about the solution and these service standards. But right here, the next stat from this is managers need to give more meaningful feedback, more meaningful recognition. So in this survey, what Gallup did is they looked at manager blind spots. So they had employees fill this out, and the question was, do they strongly agree that their manager delivers on giving meaningful feedback and recognition? So what what employees said about their direct reports, what they said about their overall managers, they said, wow, the recognition they get for good work. Employees said 59% of employees agree that their managers need to give more meaningful feedback and recognition for work. And it doesn't even stop there. Look at this. Not only do they need to give more recognition for work, they also strongly agree that they need to give recognition for work with weekly feedback. And that's 50%. Half of the people on your team say, I need some sort of weekly feedback to know, am I doing a good job? Am I not doing a good job? This actually goes with what we teach on positive, neutral, and negative reinforcement that leaders teach. Albrecht, can you talk about the positive, negative, neutral reinforcement and how this actually is coming into play right here?
Yeah, and the good news is if you've been looking at the research and if you've been studying these data, you'll find that this is not new. Back in the 1970s, they had a subset of managers go and work for three different archetypes of a management style. One manager was only supposed to give positive feedback. One manager was only supposed to give neutral feedback, and one manager gave extremely harsh and critical feedback. And I remember studying this in the 90s in college. And what the survey studies showed was unanimously across the board, every person who worked for the positive manager rated the positive manager number one unanimous. But what was interesting is that there was a unanimous pick for number two across the 30 employees that worked for the three different types of managers, and it wasn't the neutral manager. Unanimously, everyone picked the harsh criticism, negative feedback manager because everyone agreed it was absolutely horrible that month working for someone in silence. No news is good news. Don't call me, we'll call you. Was absolutely horrible. And so I used to have a saying in my 30s that has now evolved in my 40s, and I think I might have said it on the podcast before, but if I haven't, here it is. In the 30s, I used to say, if you don't want to be disappointed, live life without expectation. But what I found to be true, despite what I felt was true, is the opposite. To get disappointed is to live life with lack of expectation. To not have expectation as to what life looks like and what winning looks like in the home. To not have an expectation of what life looks like and what winning looks like at work. I think as human beings, I don't think I know, as human beings, we are wired for if this, then that type logic. And if we don't know what is expected of us, it's really hard for us to perform to our max potential.
That's really good. And this is a perfect segue into service standards, but before we go there, I think a lot of our listeners, we can say, all right, I know what negative reinforcement looks like. It's the slap on the end. Hey, you did that wrong. Hey, don't do that again. Hey, when you answer the phone and you say, yes, I'm in the office, well, make sure you know who it is before you do it. All this kind of stuff. What I want to hear, Albrecht, is could you give me a specific example, maybe from your experience, maybe from a credit union you've worked with, of what does negative reinforcement actually look like? And what type of behaviors does that elicit in an employee when they get this? And then do it with neutral and then do it with positive. Give me a specific example so our listeners can say, oh, I've done that, or, oh, I know someone like that.
Yeah. Well, the negative's easy. When I had new hires start on my team, there was always two things I told my new hires when they started on my team. Number one, my job is to put your name in the lights. My job is to move you higher than where you're at today. So if you're to leave tomorrow, you're going to leave better tomorrow than you were today. And so that's, number one. Number two, don't get on a list. And every new hire would ask me the question, what list? And I'd say it doesn't matter. We're a credit union. So if you get your name on a list, it's negative feedback almost always. It's either something you didn't do that you're supposed to do or something that you did do that you weren't supposed to do. And so one of the things that we struggle with when we hire employees to manage risk, which is what credit unions do. We buy and sell money and we manage risk for a living. So who do we typically hire? Risk adverse people. What do risk adverse people do when we hire them to manage risk? They create lists of
Yeah.
people who have exposed us when it comes to making risky things like not doing audits on time or doing things that might, get us in trouble with the NCUA by uploading a membership without crossing off the face for the driver's license because we're doing an auto loan and we can't use bias in our decisioning for the auto loan. And so these things, not taking the Reg CC course on time, all these lists kind of exist in credit union environment. And an example of neutral reinforcement is, let's say as a branch manager, my first year, the last branch manager opened up 300 memberships. My first year I opened 487. Those are real numbers. And let's just say nobody said anything about the 487 memberships.
Dang.
Right?
Let's say
I
make you
went
feel?
to my first manager's meeting and nobody said anything about the memberships. My first one-on-one, my year-end review of my manager, no one says anything about the memberships. And so I'm trying to wonder in my mind, did I do a good job? I think I did a good job, but I don't know if I did a good job. So neutral on its own, not good. Negative on its own, not good. But typically those things don't live in silos. Typically those things don't live in a vacuum. What organizations typically incorporate is a negative neutral environment where they both kind of exist, where it's no news is good news, and now you're on the list. And so let's say in that same scenario, that branch manager who opened up 487 memberships is looking for that positive reinforcement and is not getting it. And it goes from December to January. And now February, they finally get a phone call about the 487 memberships. And they're like, thank you. Yes, I'm the guy.
Feels good. You got recognized.
It's compliance. And you're the number one offender on our list. And let's go membership by membership and go through all of the things that you did wrong. Now, in a negative neutral environment, I'm not going to be incentivized to do anything like open 500 memberships my second year. If anything, I want to open up less memberships because it's less exposure for me to get caught doing it wrong. And so when there's negative neutral environments, you actually create a chasm where I want to do less with less members. I want to take less risks because there's no reward for me to put myself out there. There's no incentive for me to actually go and like kill it in year 2. If anything, I'm just going to get my hand slapped. And so I'm probably going to do less. And we actually see this if you take it outside of the credit union world and we look at highway state patrol. That's a negative neutral environment. You never get pulled over to say good job, attaboy.
Good driving.
Yeah, we're going to put these notes in the system so that the next time we pull you over, maybe we don't give you a ticket because you had your hands on the 10 and 2 and you checked your blind spot 3 times, kept 3 spaces in front of you. I just want to pull you over and let you know you did a great job. And so people drive just fast enough to not get caught on the highway. And in negative neutral environments in work, people work just sucky enough to not get caught, to not get put on the list, to not get written up. And so they take the BSA test and they're not paying attention, but they don't get put on the list. And so they significantly underperform in negative neutral environments. So an example of a positive reinforcement environment is the one where service standards exist, where we can actually catch somebody doing things right on the behavior level, which influences the outcomes, which influences our mission.
Boom. And that's perfect stop right there. We're going to stop, go to our sponsors, ServiStar Consulting, and hear an ad from them. And when we come back, we're going to tell you how do you get to the solution. We're going to give you the formula, but this is going to require a lot of work on your part. So stay tuned after this message. Feeling inspired? Want to learn how to coach your department to be a high-performing team? Vertex Live Nationwide is an 11-session live online group that meets bi-weekly. In this course, Scott and I are going to talk about delegation, how to resolve conflict, effective decision-making practices, and of course, how to coach your team for performance. Go ahead, move the movement and sign up for Vertex Live Nationwide. Click the link in the show notes, and we're excited to see you there. Welcome back to the Credit Union Leadership Podcast. We've talked about the importance from the Gallup feedback that we just saw, the Gallup survey results. And Albrecht, what do you got on your head?
Some people are walking through their lives unknowing what it is that they are supposed to do. So I grabbed one of my blindfolds from our team building exercises that we do on site, and I'm currently wearing said blindfold. And this is what it looks like to be an employee without minimum expectations. And
Ooh,
I'm
and
telling you
also
right now, Scott and Lee, I don't. This is very disconcerting. I'm all out of sorts. I don't know where I'm at. This is crazy.
this is method acting at its finest. This actually reminds me of a question we often get after our on-site training. So let's take it to office hours.
Office hours.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
All right, we're back. All right, so the question we get from a lot of our leaders is just like the employees walking around Albrecht with their blindfold on. Our leaders feel that way. Sometimes our leaders feel like if we do one all-employee day training and we talk about, credit unions were known for service excellence, let's go do it, rah! That everyone all of a sudden, like the Grinch, will get their heart 3 times bigger from this one event, and they'll be forever changed, and they'll never have to talk about it again, never have to put work into it again. And from our Vertex leadership program, we talk about that is not the right mindset. It's not a one-time fix. It's the part of a leader is you've got to be consistent and persevere and keep doing this. And yes, you need these all-employee training days, but it's what do you do after? So the question we get is, after our big training day, how do we keep this service excellence going? So Albrecht, you were talking about the importance of service standards. Walk me through that.
Everybody's got a mission statement. Some of your mission statements have been around for 20 years. Maybe they're even created by a bunch of people who don't even work at the credit union anymore, and aren't on the credit union board anymore. And yet, the mission statement in and of itself, it should be enough to rally the team, but it's not very specific. And so what do we have to add to mission, vision, purpose to make it real? And so what a lot of credit unions have done is they've added core values to those types of statements so that we can say, well, how does it look? But the problem with core values, at least as we kind of consult credit unions, is that these are all to be accountable as an attribute. To be empathetic is an attribute. To have integrity is an attribute. To have responsibility is an attribute. Meaning most people would self-ascribe these attributes to themselves, and you can't really measure the behaviors just by saying, I need you to be more accountable. You can't measure the behaviors of what it looks like to have a better attitude or to be more positive. And so these attributes are hard to measure, and everyone thinks that they are accountable. Everyone thinks that they are high integrity. Everyone thinks that they are responsible. And so, 30 years ago, I don't think that we would have to define what it looks like to have respect as much as we do today. I mean, 30 years ago, I couldn't address you, Mr. Anderley, without saying Mr. Anderley. Otherwise, I'd probably get, some reprimand in public. But today,
it's like what Mike Neal says. He always says, well, especially now we've got so many different generations in the workforce that if we say be respectful, some people might say, hey, have a blessed one, Mr. Albrecht. While other generations in the workplace say, hey, have a good one. And you go, whoa, that's not the same. But they both think they're being respectful.
yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, so to your point, for the first time ever, we have 5 generations working in the workplace. And so someone who's 55 might have a different definition of what it looks like to be respectful than someone my age. And someone my age might have a different, expectation of what it looks like to be respectful than someone who's 23. And so as leaders lead. And so what we need to do, even though we think it's common sense, is we need to articulate what it actually looks like. I like to use the term, paint the picture for me of what good attitude looks like. So-and-so needs to fix their attitude. They got an attitude problem. Okay, what does that look like? Right? We got an accountability issue on our team. Okay, well, paint the picture. What does it look like to have an accountability issue? What is the behavior that's affecting your level of accountability as it relates to living out the mission? And so this behavioral service standards does that. You have to maybe spend an hour with yourself thinking about all of the ways in which someone can win with behaviors for your department. Maybe in the IT department, it would be, I've got core values of integrity. Okay, so what does it look like to have integrity in the IT department? The IT leader should sit down with themselves or herself and ask that question of themselves. And for me as an IT leader, I might have a service standard that I write out and then share with my team later on and say, one of the ways that we live out our mission in IT, and I'm just kind of going off the cuff here for integrity, but one of the ways we do that is we don't close out a ticket without first verifying with the person who opened the ticket that we've resolved their issue.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
how we live out our, because I mean, I can get really good ticket turn times if I just keep on closing out Anderley's ticket because he never returned my phone call.
Yeah.
And it's going to look good on paper, and that's an outcome, but that doesn't actually live out to our missional core value of integrity. And
Yeah.
so
So
in
you make,
accounting, we can do the same thing. What does it look like to have integrity in accounting for the member facing departments? We can do the same thing. Integrity in the member facing spot. It's a little bit more straightforward, right? We're managing a cash drawer. So one of the ways that we can be integrity on that is to double count back our cash on camera to the member. Never tell the member something unless you've double checked to make sure that you're accurate in your statements. And if you don't know something, tell them you don't know. Don't make something up.
yeah.
For me as a branch manager, I didn't do this as well. And the repercussions was everyone was learning by shock collar value. Somebody
Oh.
would say a curse word in the back room, and I'm like, you don't do that. Shock collar.
Negative
Somebody would
reinforcement.
say the word try, and I'm like, yeah, we don't say the word try in our branch. And so when you don't actually share clear expectations up front, a couple of things happen. Number one, you can't hold people accountable because they don't even know that it's the expectation that we show up 5 minutes early to every meeting. And so you can't say, hey, you're not meeting my expectation. They're just going to be dumbfounded because you never actually told us
Yeah.
it's my expectation that you show up 5 minutes early to every meeting. So it's a really good practice. It's good hygiene to, I think Brene Brown says, clear is care, to actually take an hour, sit down with yourself and say, okay, it's common sense to me, but what's winning look like for my team as it ties to the core values and as it ties to the mission? And that's behavioral service standards.
So what we're giving you guys is we're not giving you a solution. It's not a one size fits all. We're giving you a formula to the solution. And what I really want to stress is this is going to be work on your part. ServiStar can't do the answer for you. Yeah, I could give you a list. I could give you some references, but you've got to be willing and able to do this yourself. And if you're a current leader and you say, man, we just had a great all-day training, everyone's amped up about internal service or external service, how do you keep this going? Well, you got to hold people accountable. And the thing is, everyone uses neutral and negative reinforcement because we know I love this outside the credit union movement. My wife's a graphic designer and she had a client, they were making a book. And she was talking with the client. He goes, you know what? I'll know if I don't like it when I see it. And that's not what you want. You want someone to say, this is what I want. So then they could create something and they're working with purpose. And then you can say, yes, I can catch you doing it right. Or, hey, let's tweak this. This is not exactly what I meant when I set this expectation. So we're not giving you a solution. We're giving you a formula. And I would say the formula, like if you think X plus Y equals Z, let's say it's values plus behaviors equal service standards. So what you were saying, Albrecht, is look at your mission statement, look at the values you've created, like integrity. And then we can't just say, you got to work with integrity. We got to create what is a behavior, not an outcome, not the ticket time, but what is a behavior? What's something you do? I'll call each member to verify we have provided the correct solution before closing the ticket. That is a behavior. And that equals your service standard. And what you'd say is our service standard is we live out integrity by checking with our teammate before closing the ticket. Boom. So this is what we want you to work on. And what I want to be clear, Albrecht, you ServiStar, well, both of us, actually, we've done this a lot now. This is actually something new that we're very excited about and implementing now. We work with credit unions. We can just work with you to help you develop service standards. It can be part of our package as we come and do all day training that we help you develop these and you present them. And then we say, here's our service excellence training. And this is how you can live out each of these behavior standards in these elements of truth and the moments of truth that we talk about. I do want to talk about one thing when people create service standards that we should shy away from, Albrecht. And you tell me if this has happened to you. There's some clients we've worked with and we give them a list. Here's some examples that you can steal, you can use and tweak to create your own service standards. And sometimes people look at it and they go, and this is what it is. I will not roll my eyes. I will avoid interrupting. I will not use profanity. I will not show up late. I will not be mean to my members. Albrecht, what does that sound like to you?
If you tell me all the things that you are not, then I still have no clue of who you actually are. So yeah, I agree. What does winning look like needs to be defined. Otherwise, your team's walking around blind. And if you give them a list of things not to do, you still haven't told them what to do. There's enough anxiety at work today. That means you don't have to add more anxiety. You guys are going to do core conversions. You got a merger coming up. You got a reorg coming up. You got a rebrand. You got enough anxiety. You don't need to add anxiety by letting someone not know what is expected of them. You know, one of the things that we haven't talked about was the Gallup research that said the number one reason why people left their job was their immediate supervisor. When you dig into the reason why those people listed their immediate supervisor as the reason why they left their job, it was lack of clear expectations. They were walking around work not knowing if they were doing a great job for their manager or if their manager didn't like what they were doing. And so
Mm-hmm.
that lack of feedback really does hurt your employees' ability to go faster. If I know
Yeah.
I'm doing the right thing, I might do it faster. I might do it more effectively. I might do it more faster and more further. Whereas if I don't know in that negative neutral, I'm going to stop opening up new memberships. I'm going to stop going as fast because I don't know if it's the right thing to do.
Man, so do y'all see how this connects? The Gallup survey, all-time low employee satisfaction at work. And there's a corollary of all-time low. And also, we're at 60% of employees say, my manager needs to give me more recognition for good work, more feedback. We've just given you the formula of setting clear service standards so you can catch people doing it right instead of having that neutral reinforcement.
And
So,
Anderly, I will tell you right now, you're going to write down winning behaviors and you're going to think about that one person that does that winning behavior on a regular basis. And the question that I always ask my clients is that one person going to continue to do that winning behavior regardless of whether or not you wrote it down? And they say,
hmm,
yeah. And then they ask
yeah.
me, what's the point of writing it down if that person's still going to do it, whether I catch them doing it right or not? I said, you'll never unmotivate someone who's motivated. And that one person's internally
Mm.
motivated. But if you don't catch them doing things right, they will end up doing it for somebody else.
Yep. Yep.
It's to the point of catching that person doing something right that they're already going to do, whether they're working for you or not, is not so that they continue to do that one thing. They're going to do it whether they're working there or not.
Yeah.
But the value is you retain your top performers because they know that they're outperforming everybody else. Your top performers that are internally motivated, they know that they're winning.
Hmm.
And if they know that you're not paying attention, they'll go work for someone who will.
Yeah. Man, this is great. Well, we're going to end the show here. There's so much we could talk about, but I think we've delivered a great product, a great solution for you, or really the formula for you to work on the solution. So we're the Credit Union Leadership Podcast here to inspire current leaders and challenge and help aspiring current leaders. And we love ending off with a segment of the show that we call Catching You Doing It Right, where we have our listeners submit in audio recordings. And there's a link on the show notes where you can do this, where you can record and say, hey, I want to catch so-and-so doing it right, or my team doing it right, or my boss doing it right. And then guess what? You can share this episode with them and they'll be like, whoa, well, this is crazy. You're publicly catching them doing it right on a really cool way. And this is going to help move the movement. When you do this, yes, you're helping your own team, but you're also encouraging our listeners to catch their team doing it right. So I want to thank you so much for your submissions. Keep them up. We're going to listen to this and then we'll end off the show. Thank y'all so much for being here.
Catching you doing it right.
To successfully manage a multi-generational team, it's important to understand what motivates each group. Baby boomers tend to be recognized for their experience and leadership qualities. Gen X often appreciates flexibility and independence, meaning that they prefer clear goals and space to work, whereas millennials thrive on teamwork and constant feedback. Finally, Gen X values technology, diversity, and growth opportunities. It is imperative to adjust your management style based on your employee and also bring everyone together with shared goals, fostering open communication and creating cross-generational collaboration so everyone feels included and valued. It is also important to learn about your team on a personal level to fully understand their goals and create comfort within the team.
If you're interested in submitting a question to the Credit Union Leadership Podcast, we want to hear from you. Go in our show notes. We have a link over there. And in that link, it's going to take you to two options. You can submit a question written out through email, or you can submit an audio recording through SpeakPipe. We make it super easy. Go to the link in the show notes, click audio recording. Once you click audio recording, it's going to take you straight to a website where you just press the record button. You've got 90 seconds to submit a question or submit you catching doing somebody do it right. And then you just type in your name and email address, and that's it. It comes straight to us and we'll take it from there. So you don't need to download anything. You don't need to get any new software. You just go to this website, press record and click submit, and we're good to go. So go to the link in the show notes, click if you want to submit a question written out or through audio, and we'll take it from there. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time.
Credit unions typically provide about 2 weeks of training to a new teller. But did you know that the average manager goes 10 years without receiving management training? How much training is provided to your new managers? ServiStar's Emerging Leaders program will take your new and emerging leaders and deepen the bench to move the movement forward. We're looking forward to seeing your emerging leaders at our 2-part series, one in the spring and one in the fall, where we talk about leadership hacks, building trust, coaching essentials, effective mentorship, change management, developing your brand, managing former peers, and work-life integration. All sessions are from 2 to 4, and they start soon. So go to ServiStarConsulting.com and register your team today.